She booked the bridal suite under my name, but I wasn't the groom. The desk clerk didn't flinch when he read my name on the reservation. He only glanced at my ID and slid the key card across the marble like a magician completing a trick he'd practiced too many times to enjoy. "Congratulations," he said, because the room type was listed as bridal suite because someone had attached a note that read, "Add roses, add champagne, add view." I said thanks. I did not explain that I was alone, wearing the kind of blue suit you buy when you believe in outcomes, and that I had not booked anything. I didn't say that my wife, Nora, was at a strategy dinner, a phrase that had recently started tasting like metal when it touched the back of my tongue. I put the key card in my pocket and walked toward the elevator with my face arranged in the polite grin of a man caught between luck and recognition. The sign on the frosted glass read, "Veloria Hotel, you're here to kiss." I thought it was tacky when they unveiled it last month. Tonight it sounded like a dare. My name was on the reservation because the suite was booked with the same corporate card I used to pay vendors for our firm. That card lives in a locked drawer and only two people have access: me and our operations director, a man I've known since I was young enough to sleep under desks and call it ambition. His name is Felix. He is good at chess, partnerships, and using my trust as currency. The card had been used at 3:12 p.m. while I was in a budget meeting, arguing about the price of chairs. Nora texted at 8:02, "Don't wait up. Be a good man, punish me with breakfast." The kind of flirtation couples adopt when they need proof they still have a language. I said, "I'll make pancakes if you bring the gossip." A heart came back, then silence. At 8:30, the fraud alert pinged. At 8:45, I was walking into the Veloria, the lobby diffused into cinematic gold, as if the hotel needed to turn every guest into a memory before they'd earned one. Here is what I knew as the elevator rose. Nora and I were a story that had become well lit but underwritten. Here is what I suspected. The bridal suite would be dressed for a promise we had postponed so long the ribbon had fossilized. Here is what I feared. When I opened the door, I would find an alibi wearing cologne. The suite unlocked with a cheerful beep. The room was all rehearsed romance, roses arranged like choreography, champagne sweating in a silver bucket, a view of the river that made the city look expensive and disposable at once. On the bed, a white envelope lay like a snowdrift against the dark duvet. My name was written on it in Nora's hand, the slow, educated cursive she uses when she wants to seem softer than she is. I opened it. Inside, a single key, brass and antique on a velvet ribbon. Beneath it, a card with a sentence Nora would only write if she were trying not to confess directly. "Use this if you want to know whether we still can." No signature, no time, no room number, only the Veloria's logo and my pulse in my ears. The old elevators at the back of the hotel don't light up like the glass ones. They breathe. The brass key was a charm for one of those doors. I knew it the way you know the sound of your own front gate. I pocketed the key, left the suite untouched, and took the staff staircase down 2 floors. It came from my time consulting for the Veloria security rollout. I know their blind corners. I know which cameras lag a second and a half behind reality. On the 12th floor, a corridor was held open by a wedge wrapped in duct tape like a cast. Housekeeping had abandoned a cart, its top lined with towels folded into maritime creatures. Something in me wanted to laugh. Something else wanted to throw all of it against the wall. Instead, I waded back to the exit door, listening to ice clink in glasses far away. When the corridor settled into a steady heartbeat, I tried the old service elevator. The brass key turned like a secret yielding to pressure. The doors sighed open. Inside the elevator, blurred versions of me lived in the metal. I pressed 16. The lift rose as if it had a point to prove. At the top, The door opened onto a small vestibule that led to a single door with a frosted oval window, the letters prints in black paint across the glass. Veloria named each private parlor after a kind of fantasy people pay to briefly inhabit. The old key worked here, too. I stepped into a room styled like a library for men who have never read. Leather, amber lamps, a bar. Curtains bared the river, the bridge lights cutting the water into jeweled sentences. And on the couch, Felix sat with his tie loosened, looking like a man rehearsing remorse. He stood when he saw me, his face managing both relief and calculation. "You got the card," he said. I looked for a second person, the shape of Nora in the drape of a coat over a chair, in a lip print on a flute, in hair caught in a lamp chain. The room did not yield her. "Where is she?" I asked. "She's late," he said, "like always." The anger I had carefully packed into a carry-on threatened to unzip itself. "You booked a bridal suite under my name, with my card, so you could meet my wife here late?" I asked. He didn't flinch. "I booked a bridal suite under your name with your card because she wouldn't come if it looked like mine. She told me you'd only trust your own shadow." He gestured to the couch. "If it helps, I hated paying for roses." It did not help. I sat anyway because I wanted information more than catharsis. "When did it start?" My voice sounded like a manager conducting an exit interview. He folded his hands. He has pianist fingers, strong and precise. "It started the night you sent me to pacify her over dinner while you finished a pitch," he said. "You remember. The night you texted me, 'Keep her laughing. I'm saving our quarter.'" I remembered. Our firm was chasing a contract that would keep us fed for a year. I had ordered Felix to be charming so I could be indispensable. I pictured the table where they had sat. The wine Nora pretends not to like but always orders anyway. The gesture she makes when she's interested. She rotates her glass by its stem with her thumb and middle finger, the world spinning under her while she decides where to look. "And who kissed whom?" I asked, because truth is a light switch and I wanted to see the whole room at once. He smiled without pleasure. "She said she was tired of wanting to be wanted," he answered. "I said I was tired of wanting without asking. We met in the middle and made a mistake that repeated." Before I could swallow that, the door opened. Nora came in with rain in her hair, cheeks bright from wind, eyes already on me. She didn't startle. She didn't apologize. She closed the door and leaned against it like she was choosing her posture for the rest of the night. "You picked the library," she said to me. "Good. I thought you'd choose the suite. The suite would have made it about theater. This can still be about truth." "Tell it then," I said. Felix stood, then sat again, like a student remembering the rules of an exam hall. She walked to the window and looked at the river the way people stare at a mirror when they need a stranger to answer. "It's not about sex," she began, and I almost laughed because that's what everyone says when it is absolutely, terribly about sex. "It's about the way I disappear in our house," she continued. "We're organized. We run on calendars and kindness. You treat love like an investment you will not withdraw from because the penalty would be obscene. She flicked her eyes at Felix, treats it like a risk that pays off only if you put something on the table." "He put my name on the table," I said. "He put our company on the table. He put my trust there like a napkin." "Because you'd look at it," she said. "Because you'd come." Felix watched us like a man at a chessboard who realizes all his best moves are already bad history. "I told her I'd end it," he said. "Tonight. I booked this to say goodbye without leaving anything ugly behind." I looked at Nora. "Is that true?" She tilted her head. "He thinks it is." "And you?" I asked. She stepped closer, into the cone of one of those lamps that flatter everyone. "I think I am not done choosing my life," she said. And I am disgusted that my choosing involves two men who know each other's shoe size and browser habits. I hate that we made it tawdry. I also hate how alive I felt when secrecy finally made me visible to myself. I could have shouted. I could have said names and dates and found an itemized invoice of betrayal. Instead, I did what I do when the board has more pieces than my hands. I changed the game. "Here are my terms," I said, and Felix stiffened because he knows that tone from the conference room. "You will both listen. You will both hate me, and then you will decide if hating me is better than continuing to hate yourselves." Nora folded her arms. Felix looked like he wanted to drink the lamp. "One, Nora and I take a week. No contact with you, Felix. No contact with secrets. A week where we remove the noise and find out if there is still signal. 2. If we stay married after that week, you will resign, Felix. Not because I want to ruin you, but because I refuse to live in a house where the walls are built out of my own firm's gossip. 3. If we don't stay married, you will still resign for 3 months. You'll land on your feet, you always do. But the exit will be clean, and the story outside will not be this one." Felix swallowed. "You're firing me for loving your wife." "I'm giving you a parachute for not loving yourself enough to say no," I said. Then I looked at Nora. "And you? If we stay married, you will not pay me in promises. You will say out loud what you miss while I'm still standing in the room. You will not outsource your courage." She absorbed that like a woman measuring a dress she might wear to a funeral or a wedding. "And what do you put on the table?" she asked. I took the brass key out and set it between us. I stopped managing my marriage like a portfolio. I stopped timing my tenderness to avoid volatility. I show up on Tuesday afternoons, not only on Sunday mornings. I stop making you feel like something I must never lose instead of someone I can still win. The room held still. The rain tapped a tiny tattoo against the window. Felix let out a breath that sounded like he'd been holding it since the night Nora rotated a wine glass and looked at him like yes. "I'll resign," he said quietly. "I'll help transition the accounts. I won't tell anyone why." "That's not mercy," I said. "That's hygiene." He nodded. "Then I'll be clean." Nora stepped to the table and touched the key with 2 fingers, the way a believer touches a relic. "A week," she said, looking at me. "But we don't hide from touch in that week. I want to know if the reason I went looking for heat was because we turned our house into a museum where nothing is allowed to breathe." Heat, the word expanded in my chest. I had been avoiding it because heat demands you burn something. "Fine," I said, "but our heat does not use him as oxygen." She nodded once. Decision made. Felix stood. "I'll go," he said. "I'll send my resignation tonight. You two do whatever a week requires." He moved toward the door. At the threshold, he turned back with a kind of gentle stupidity I had once mistaken for loyalty. "I did love you, Nora," he said. "Not well, but I did." Then he left and the brass latch clicked with a sound like a period. Silence landed, big as furniture. We stood there breathing like swimmers. Nora picked up the key and slipped it into my palm, closing my fingers around it. "It isn't a key to a room," she said. "It's to the old elevator, the one without cameras. I wanted you to choose whether to see us without witnesses. You came." "I came because you wrote in your handwriting," I said. "Because I know what your letters mean. Because even your lies look like home to me." She stepped into me then, so close I could smell rain, and a note of perfume I bought because the seller told me it was dangerous in daylight. Her hand slid up my chest and settled at the back of my neck. She didn't kiss me immediately. She held me there, eyes open, like we were two people balancing on a ledge with the city below and daring each other to take a step. "Tell me I'm wanted," she whispered. without the word always. "I want you now," I said, and the sentence startled me with its accuracy. She kissed me, and it wasn't delicate. It was the kind that knocks a picture frame askew, a kiss with teeth not for pain but for proof. My hands found her waist, my thumb catching the damp hem of her blouse. She made that small sound that unlatches doors in my head. We moved backward, bumping into furniture, laughing once because we are the type of people who laugh when the air gets too electric. We did not undress like a movie. We unbuttoned like we had deadlines. We did not make a spectacle. We made an argument with our bodies. It was pornographic. It was profane in the way prayer is when you really mean it. At one point she pressed her forehead to mine, breath sinking, and said, "More." And I realized how long it had been since she'd asked me for anything that didn't come with an easy checkbox. When it was done, not finished, just quiet, we lay on that ridiculous leather couch and listened to the rain promote itself to thunder. I felt the old ache of love that is complicated and therefore alive. She traced a line on my wrist where my watch had made a mark. "Do you hate me?" she asked, voice hoarse. "I hate the version of us that made you hungry," I said. "I want to starve him." She smiled, exhausted and luminous. "Feed this one instead," she said, and her palm rested flat over my heart like we were taking an oath. We took the week. The world didn't burn without us. We cooked badly and ate well. We fought on Wednesday night and nearly called it, then made up on the hallway floor, whispering things that would sound stupid in the daylight but felt like passwords at the time. On Friday, we found ourselves laughing at nothing and everything in the way only people who have crawled out of a fire together can. On Sunday, we watched the river and admitted what we wanted when we were alone. Felix resigned. He left a note on my desk. "I hope you use the part of me that was good when you write the reference." I did. People are rarely one thing, and if they are, you should never love them. We did not forgive easily. We did not forget. We built something unruly and deliberate. Some nights when the rain is interesting, we take the old elevator in our building down to the basement and back up, just because the camera there is always a second and a half behind, and we like the private courage of kissing in that lag. A frame where you can still choose who you are before the world catches up. And sometimes, when we walk past the Veloria, we look up at the lit rooms and feel a pulse at the same time. The sign still says you're here to kiss. I still think it's tacky, but I also know now that tacky is a kind of honesty. People come to hotels to test themselves against the stories they tell at home. We failed that test once. We took it again together. I kept the brass key. It sits in a bowl with our house keys, cool and heavy, a reminder that doors are only invitations, and it's terrifying, holy work to decide which ones you walk through and which ones you lock, then throw the key into your own open hand.